Hello, and welcome to this brief video where I will go over exactly what impact business models are, their role in the B-Impact assessment, as well as shed some light on common misconceptions and mistakes. When B-Lab was founded in 2006, its purpose was to transform the global economy to benefit all people, communities, and the planet. As entrepreneurs themselves, the founders understood the need to harness business as a force for good. Certified B corporations embody this force as they exist to do more than just make profit. Impact business models, which we commonly refer to as IBMs, are one way that B-Lab recognizes companies that are designed to create a specific positive benefit or outcome for their stakeholders. IBMs may be based on products, a particular process or activity, or the structure of the business itself. IBMs have been designed to cover and be generally aligned with the dimensions of impact outlined in the Impact Management Project. This project created a forum that spent 5 years building global consensus on how to measure, assess, and report impacts on people and the natural environment. For more information on the Impact Management Project, please see a link in the video description below. So now let's examine, what does the B-Impact assessment measure? IBMs are one of 3 underlying aspects of a company's social and environmental performance that is assessed. The first aspect is operational impact, which makes up the majority of the assessment. This section seeks to capture the operational performance of your company as it is managed and operated on a day-to-day basis. Next, and unlike questions related to operations, impact business models go a level deeper by identifying and evaluating whether and how a company or business model is designed to create a specific positive impact for one or more stakeholders. Lastly is the unscored disclosure questionnaire, which is used to identify any sensitive or potentially negative impacts of the business. For more information on the disclosure questionnaire and its potential impacts on certification, please refer to the knowledge base, which I have also linked in the video description below. So what specifically makes an IBM different from an operational question? First off, IBMs are unique to each company as they are typically part of the reason the business was created. They are specific to a company's design, structure, or business model, and they go beyond the impact created by daily operations. Next, IBMs create a significant positive impact for specific stakeholders in a for-profit market. And lastly, the purpose of IBMs are to capture the verifiable impacts of business models that are designed to create significant positive effects. Therefore, IBMs must be related to the company's design or core products or services that the company offers. If you're unable to associate impact to a revenue stream or verify impact through robust data collection or other means, it's likely that we will not be able to capture that impact in an IBM. Please note that IBMs related to products and services should have at least 12 months of data to verify the positive impact being created. These concepts are pretty general, so in the next few slides, we'll explore what this looks like in the real world. Here are a few examples that highlight the differences between operational impact and impact that would be captured in an IBM. This first example is focused on recycling. Let's say your company pays extra to your local waste management services so that you can recycle materials from your daily operations. This would be an example of an operational impact that is not specific to the company's structure or business model. However, if your company was the one selling recycling services, you would likely be eligible for an IBM. This is because your company was created to generate a specific positive impact for a stakeholder. This recycling company is designed to reduce the environmental impact of its clients and can likely provide data on the outcomes. In other words, they can report on the amount of resources that they've been able to conserve through the services they offer. The second example is focused on charitable giving and donations. Let's say your company is very involved with the local community center, and you provide sponsorships for local sports teams, or your whole staff spends every Earth Day picking up trash. Maybe you even give away some of your products for free. It may seem like this company is going above and beyond. However, these impacts would still be considered operational ones. While all of these things are great and have positive impact in the community, the business was not designed to create this impact, nor is this impact being generated by a product or service. However, if your business has a buy one, give one model, where for each product or service you donate one, That would be a clear example of a business designed to create a specific impact for a stakeholder. One example of a company like this is Bombas, an apparel company in New York. They have received the Design to Give IBM based on their mission, which is to help those experiencing homelessness. For every item of clothing purchased, Bombas donates one. Since the company launched, Bombas has donated more than 30 million items to more than 2,500 community organizations. The company's ongoing commitment demonstrates the lasting nature of their business model and impact. This last example here is focused on hiring. Let's say your company has great hiring practices and procedures and has a diverse workforce. While this is great, it does not cross the threshold for an IBM, as the company's structure and business model were not designed specifically to generate that outcome. However, a company that is focused on hiring formerly incarcerated folks and also provides additional resources that are unique to this population's barriers to employment would be a business model that can be captured in an IBM. It is clear that this company is receiving an IBM because it was designed to create a specific positive impact for its workers. When considering whether your company has an impact business model, it's helpful to consider the following underlying principles of an impact business model. I'll take a moment to read through each of these definitions now. First is that IBMs are specific. They should be focused on creating a significant positive effect for one stakeholder. Next, IBMs should be material and provide significant benefits that are not negligible. Next, IBMs should be verifiable, and impact should be documentable, typically through marketing materials, research, or internal data. IBM should also be lasting, as it should relate to the purpose of the company or the business model as a whole, and is not something that is traditionally alterable. While a company could transition its business to add or remove impact business models over time, it is not something that can be done in the near term. Furthermore, having impact business models is not part of a business merely as a result of current circumstances, but is built into the nature of the business itself. And lastly, IBM should be extraordinary. By definition, they are something that traditional businesses do not have. And as such, any company that has an IBM is uncommon and extraordinary. So now you may be wondering, what IBMs are available in the B Impact Assessment? The image above shows the current list of IBMs available. As you can see, each of the 5 impact areas have their own IBMs. Within each impact area, there is a similar format for opting into or opening up IBM sections of the assessment. It is important to note that IBMs do not automatically show up in every assessment. So once you're sure that an IBM applies to your company, how do you open it so that you can see the questions associated with the IBM in reference? In addition to operational questions, all users will be asked a series of unweighted questions called gating questions to determine whether an IBM might be applicable to your business. These questions appear at the end of each introductory impact topic. Once a company has correctly gone through the gating questions and identified that they may have an impact business model, several new questions will appear in your assessment. The questions within the model itself are designed to evaluate the performance and potential impact of the particular model. In the next slide, I will show what this process looks like within the B Impact Assessment. So here's what the B Impact Assessment looks like. And the question above is one of the gating questions in the environmental section. The purpose of this question is to determine which, if any, environmental IBMs apply to the company filling out the assessment. Not every company has an impactful business model. Numerous options are acknowledged in the B Impact Assessment that reward companies for business models that create a significant positive benefit. For example, in the environmental impact area, companies with business models that contribute to circular economies or the energy transition are eligible for an IBM. Please note that most B Corps have only 1 or 2 impact business models. For this example, this company here is a business that diverts resources from a landfill as they use recycled materials in their products. So they have selected the conserves or diverts resources in the gating question here. Selecting this answer option will open up another gating question to confirm that your company should indeed be opted into the resource conservation IBM. This is the gating question that needs to be answered correctly for the IBM to show up in the assessment. It is a rather common question within the assessment, and often the next question asked after selecting a specific product benefit. As you can see, the question states, is resource conservation a direct positive environmental impact of your product or service? The following statement, no, it is an indirect result of the other answer selected in the question, environmental product benefits, is common among IBM gating questions. And the goal of this question is to ensure that the impact you're trying to capture is indeed the main purpose of your product or service, and not a secondary impact created by your product or service. For example, if your company's main service was solar panel installation, you may select the environmental product benefit question that your service conserves resources, as the solar panels has the potential to help customers conserve resources. However, this impact is an indirect result of another answer selected in the environmental product benefit question, which is provides or is powered by renewable energy or cleaner burning energy than current market alternatives. In this example, we can see that while a solar panel installer may be helping their clients conserve resources, that's actually an indirect result of them providing renewable energy, which has its own impact business model within the assessment. Here we can see that IBMs must be specifically designed to capture the main impact of a business model on a specific stakeholder. So once you've confirmed that the impact you're trying to capture is the direct result of the product, service, or structure of your business, you will see a new section of the assessment open up with the IBM title at the top. As you answer these questions, you will see that IBMs are high scoring, and you can receive anywhere from 5 to 60 points. If you're scoring less than 5 points after answering all the questions in an IBM, there's a good chance that your company does not apply, and you should take a moment to revisit the gating questions. Scores earned for impact business models are displayed at the top of each section within the assessment, as well as the total at the top of the question filter. So now I'll take a moment to go over some of the key components of the scoring methodology for IBMs. Most begin by asking a series of questions that determine the intensity of the impact, which is used to differentiate different levels of potential impact and best practices for companies with that model. After determining the intensity of the model, the next questions will generally measure the relative magnitude of the impact business model, which is defined as the percentage of the overall business or revenue that is contributing to the model. Additional unweighted questions in each impact business model are also included. While these questions do not factor into a company's score, they do provide a mechanism for companies to share and track raw data regarding their impact business model, particularly the overall scale or reach of beneficiaries served. In order to provide a comparable measure of performance across companies, the scoring of the assessment, particularly in this context, has been designed as scale neutral. Finally, most impact business models feature specific questions asking in more detail how your company is actively managing the outcomes produced by the particular model, including questions about having a theory of change related to the model, tracking beneficiary data, managing negative or unintended consequences, and producing both near and long-term positive outcomes. So now that we know what IBMs are, how to opt into them, and how they are scored, I'd like to take a moment to go over some common misconceptions. First is the fact that impact business models are not aspirational. IBMs should not be aspirational, and the process or product in reference should be fully operationalized with robust data on the impact or outcome. Your company should have at least 12 months of data on the impact in reference, as that is typically what is required to verify the impact your business creates. Second is the fact that magnitude is very important for product or service IBMs. In the product and service IBMs found in the environment and customer sections, the point value is largely determined by the percentage of revenues generated by the product or service being captured in that IBM compared to the total revenue. Therefore, if your impact is not being created by a revenue-generating product or service, it likely cannot be captured in a product or service IBM. This limitation means a lot of positive impacts created through free products and services cannot be captured in an IBM. Third is the fact that each IBM should capture a single impact for a specific stakeholder. While one product or service can receive multiple IBMs across different impact areas, each IBM should be associated with a single impact being generated for a specific stakeholder. One sign you may be opting into an IBM that does not apply is if you're unable to measure the impact you're describing, or if you're using the same revenue across multiple IBMs to capture one impact. An example of one IBM being incorrectly associated with multiple impacts would be, for example, the residential solar panel installer we talked about previously. In this situation, this company has opted into both renewable or cleaner burning energy IBM, as well as the land and wildlife conservation IBM. Once the solar panels are installed, they immediately begin to reduce the customer's greenhouse gas emissions and will also, in the long run, potentially help preserve or even restore natural environments. However, this company's service was specifically designed to help customers lower their greenhouse gas emissions, and the company is able to track and monitor the specific impact their services have on greenhouse gas emission reduction. While their service may also impact other stakeholders in the short or long term, the service was not designed specifically to preserve or restore natural environments, and as such, the company likely has no way to measure or manage that impact. One sign you may be opting into an IBM that does not apply is if you are unable to measure the impact you are describing. So while the previous slide was focused on misconceptions, the next two slides will go over some common mistakes made when determining if an IBM applies to your company. Please note that the specific requirements for IBMs listed above is not exhaustive, but rather highlights which requirements are not as obvious or don't closely align with the common industry perceptions. First is the design to give IBM. It is important to note that you must meet the thresholds mentioned in the gating questions for this IBM. It's also important to realize that you must have a formalized commitment, and also that commitment must be public-facing, and if it's not, you must have a 3-year track record showing that you've met that commitment. The next IBM is the Workforce Development IBM. This IBM must be received by a business who has a model that is clearly providing training and support for underserved populations. Another important part of this IBM is that a significant portion of employees must be involved in the program, and that their wages must be at least 10% above the minimum wage. The Supply Chain Poverty Alleviation IBM is typically only for companies who supply from emerging markets. You must also provide some type of capacity building service to those suppliers, and those suppliers are typically underserved populations. Next is the environmentally innovative process. This IBM is specific to an innovative process specific to your industry that addresses one issue within that industry or process. Another important part about this IBM is you must have a formal environmental management system. For the Serving Underserved Populations Direct and Indirect IBM, it's important to note that you can only receive this IBM if you're receiving another customer IBM. You must also be able to verify the positive impact your product or service is having on the underserved population in reference. And lastly is resource conservation. This IBM is for products or services that reduce resource use or limit waste to the landfill. But it's important to note that a company cannot receive this IBM for sustainable packaging unless the company itself is the one producing the packaging. Thank you for watching our video on impact business models and their role in the B-Impact assessment. In case you have any lingering questions, please reach out to B-Lab US and Canada at certify@bcorporation.net. And best of luck on your journey to certification.